I have a new king, but I'm still the queen of... Ooh, what happened to the lights? Why is it dark? I can't see anything. Andy, are you there? Did you not pay the light bill? What's going on? I can't see nothing. Oh, I feel a rat on my feet. I'm scared. I don't like the dark. Louie, where are you? I need my love bubble. Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. I am Raphael and I am here to review part 1 of the reunion to the Real Housewives Who Function Better When They're High of New Jersey. We start this reunion off a different way than I'm usually used to with the reunions on the Housewives, because usually we get a backstage segment of the wives actually arriving to the place where they were filming the reunion. We see them getting their hair and makeup done backstage, and we see Andy walking one by one to everyone's room to see where they're at mentally, but no, we just jump right into it here. But before that, we need to talk about the reunion look, starting off with Dolores, who is sitting on the far left couch with Jennifer and Teresa. And Dolores, she looks amazing. She looks phenomenal. The dress looks great on her. I love the cutouts on the side. Her boobs look good in it. Her hair looks amazing. She looks like a goddess. And she also looks like a gladiator that's about to go into a fight for the finish for a spot next season on the show. Then we move over to Jennifer. And Jennifer, right away, I'm looking at the feathers and I'm like, Salt Lake City, Salt Lake City, Salt Lake City. But once you look past that, I'm like, you know what? Jennifer actually looks amazing as well. She looks great. She looks phenomenal as well. She has her infamous Chanel earrings in her ear. Her hair looks good. Honestly, if it wasn't for the feathers on the wrist, I would probably be like, to the dress, because I feel like the feathers is the piece that made the dress look expensive and made it look nice in my eyes, because without it, I'll be like, next. But she looks great and she looks good. So we move over to the disco ball, who is sitting next to her, Teresa. And Teresa, she had on this jumpsuit that had a bunch of broken glass pieces all over it. And at first, when I first saw it a couple of weeks ago from a picture when she was standing up, I'm like, okay, it looks cute, it looks fine. But then as I'm watching this episode all the way to the ending, and they kept zooming in on the outfit, I'm like, I don't know, it looks kind of cheap. It looks like something that her daughter probably made in art class many years ago, and she just decided to make it into a dress now. I'm not really a fan of it. Her hair looks good, her face looks good, but the dress, or the outfit itself, no, I don't think I'll be standing next to Teresa on Friday the 13th. It just screams bad luck. Then we move over to Margaret. So Margaret, her dress was safe. It was okay. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. I wasn't wowed by it the way I was with Dolores. I feel like Dolores and Jennifer were the only two that really had like a wow moment at this reunion, but that doesn't really say much when everybody else on the reunion is kind of just like meh. But her look was okay. I think it was fine. But that helmet on her head, I'm not sure. I feel like she should have went with the bob cut that she's usually known for, but maybe she didn't want to go for the same thing over and over again, but maybe she should have tried something else. So then we move over to Jackie. Jackie, her look wasn't nothing like woo either. I mean, I barely noticed her this whole reunion, but you know, it was okay. She was fine. Her hair looked nice, but other than that, I really wouldn't say much. The dress was just okay. Again, it was safe. That's like a running theme at this reunion, apparently. Then we move over to Melly from the Block, aka Melissa Lopez. And Melissa looks like she was ready to perform Love Don't Cost a Thing, If You Had My Love, and Waiting for Tonight, all in one setting, because Melissa looks like she was ready to get engaged to 6 different men, all within a couple of years. And Melissa, she looks great. I mean, at first I was like, who is this Latina woman? I love the look though. I mean, it was very sexy. It was kind of different for a reunion, because it looks like something that you will also wear to the club. And maybe that's what she was gonna go after, because I think they filmed the reunion in New York City. So she was probably like, you know what? After I'm done trying to, get a storyline for next season by going at it with Teresa and my husband, I think I'm just gonna celebrate at the club after. So maybe that was her intention. But the outfit, I liked it. She looked like melted golden cheese, and it looks nice. And her hair, not one little ounce of hair was out of place. I mean, everything was in order. She looks good. So, and speaking of looks, I was trying to coordinate my look with their look as well, something shiny, something sparkly. But the more I kept looking at Marge and the more I kept looking at my top, I'm like, wait a minute, I look like fucking Marge. So you know what that means. I am burning this top as soon as I'm done recording this video. Andy starts off by greeting all the women and telling them that he has transported them all back over to Nashville, because we see that the set design for the reunion is based on the bar that they went to that one night that Teresa got really into it with Margaret. And we see the infamous bull that everybody rode minus Tracy and Margaret. We see it over there. We see the infamous plates and dishes that Teresa threw at Margaret over there on the floor. We see the infamous white dress that Margaret was wearing that night over there hanging on a hook next to a chair with the red stain from the cocktail that Teresa threw at her. So Andy goes around and he gets a brief description of what everybody's been up to. So he starts off with Margaret, and he tells Margaret, so Margaret, I didn't know you were Hungarian. Can you tell me something in Hungarian? So then Margaret says something to Andy in her language, and Andy's like, wait, what does that mean in English? So Margaret's just like, oh, well, it means stick it up your ass. And I'm like, ooh, Margaret, I think I'm gonna have to learn how to say that, because it sounds kind of kinky. So then Andy, he moves over to Melissa and he's like, so Melissa, have you and your husband Joe, have you figured out what's going to be your storyline for next season? Or are you just going to call it quits? Or is it going to be Teresa again? And how's it going with the house? Are you done renovating that house again? I mean, I think this is what, like your 10th house or whatever. Tell me about that. So Melissa's like, well, I think that the house, it should be done by summer, joggers. That's what I expected Melissa to say at this point. She's like, yeah, it's almost done. It's getting around. And as for next season, yeah, I think Teresa's going to be my storyline. Unless Joe and I come up with something, maybe like a new brother or something in my life. I'm not sure. So then Andy moves over to Jackie. And he's like, so Jackie, this season we have noticed, your constant issue with your eating disorder and everything. Tell me about that. What's the update with that? And it's good to hear from Jackie that she's actually doing well with that. She's also, besides her therapist, she has also added a nutrition into her lifestyle as well. So that's good to hear. He moves over to, I believe, Teresa. He's like, so Teresa, after we were done with the filming and stuff, we saw that you got engaged to Louie. Tell us about that. Do you have a ring on you? And that ring is huge. I mean, the ring was beautiful from what I saw. Teresa's like, oh, yes, he got me this ring. Yeah, he stole it. I mean, he scammed it. I mean, he used my credit card for it. I mean, he got it on his own. Yes, he proposed to me and I was just so happy, Andy. Yeah, I'm really happy. Are you going to give us a special? I'm surprised that hasn't been announced yet, but maybe Teresa doesn't want it, out there on camera or whatever. He moves over to Jennifer. Jennifer, how's it going with you? What's been going on with your nose? What's been going on with your surgery, your marriage? What's been happening with that? And Jennifer, she's like, oh yeah, I took out my chin. And I'm like, oh, it just sounds so painful the way she said it. I'm like, damn, you couldn't say it any other way? Like a softer way? Like, oh yeah, I redid my procedure or something. But no, she was just like, yeah, I took out my chin. I hope that she does not play with her face anymore because she looks fine. She looks pretty now. So I just feel like if you continue touching your face, Jennifer, you're going to end up fucking yourself up. So hopefully that's not the case. And then he moves over to Dolores. He's like, so Dolores, how did it feel to be vulnerable this season and to actually do something this season instead of just be in the background, not really doing nothing and just earning a paycheck? And then Dolores is like, honestly, Andy, it was very difficult because I felt like, you texted me the other day and you said, if I don't really show anything on the show anymore, I'm going to be cut and I'm going to be a friend of the show or I'm going to get fired. So, I had to talk about my relationship with my mom, and I have a new boyfriend now that I hired for next season as a storyline. I mean, that me and him are madly in love. I'm sorry. I didn't say he was hired. No, I didn't pay him to come on next season. We're genuinely in love. Yes, I really like him. Yes. Andy's like, sure, but okay. Andy brings up the situation between Dolores and Jackie from earlier in the season when they both got into each other's faces, and he tells Jackie, so Jackie, why were you so offended when Dolores referred to you as this? And Jackie's just like, well, I'm a very accomplished woman, so I'm not gonna have anybody refer to me as this. My name is Jackie. And also security was standing on the side, so I knew she wasn't gonna hit me because they were gonna protect me. And it's just so interesting the way Andy started poking fun of the whole situation and the fact that he was making light of physical violence on the show because he asked everybody, so if you had to be in a dark alley with somebody from anybody on the cast, who would that be? And I'm just like, it's just so interesting the way he's just poking fun at it and making light of it when in other cities, he has to put trigger warnings every 5 seconds. You shouldn't do this. We don't condone violence. We are not about this. We are a classy show. But here, we could just joke about it. How interesting is that? So they're like, oh, well, I think I will be scared of Dolores. Most people said Teresa, some said Dolores. Honestly, if I had to choose, none of them. But if I had to choose maybe Dolores, Dolores, I feel like if you really, really, really push her buttons far enough, maybe she'll actually do something. But Teresa, I don't know. I think Teresa, she won't go back to her old ways. I think throwing stuff is as far as it gets. But Jackie, she goes on to say that, I was really there for Jennifer because our situations were similar. And then Jennifer's like, wait. Is it similar because you wanted to be there for me as a friend? Or is it because you could feel like that your husband was also cheating the way my husband cheated on me? And Jackie was just like, no. No, my husband did not cheat on me. I was talking about I could relate to you because I was trying to be a good friend to you. Jackie got triggered so quickly, like, no, not these cheating rumors again. I thought we put that to rest. So then Andy's just like, so Jennifer, we saw your situation with Jackie and how both of you were kind of heading into a new friendship. But then Dolores, she kind of got in the way as well. And Dolores, she really just got exposed as being a flip-flop, a sandal, a slipper this entire season. Because 1 second she will be on this side. Then the next second she'll be on this side. Next thing you know, the emotional, depressed, and sad version of Jennifer that we got to see this entire season went right out the window because in came the hardcore Jennifer that she is known to be. And she asked Dolores, Dolores, I just want to know, whose idea was it? Was it you or Frank's idea was it to expose me for snooping around on Evan and trying to get some information through that phone call from that mutual friend? And Dolores was like, it was not me, it was Frank. I mean, it was neither of us. I don't know who you're talking about. And honestly, I feel like it was Frank, but I would not have been surprised if it was a mixture of both Dolores and Frank to spice up some type of drama on the show, because their connection is strong. So I'm pretty sure if Frank knew something, he's not going to keep it quiet from Dolores. But Dolores and Jennifer, they started going at it. And I'm like, wow, this is interesting. They were very close to each other. And as I'm watching them just battle it out, I'm like, okay, is somebody going to throw hands or something? Because I felt like it was going to come to blows the way they kept screaming at each other. Jennifer drops some exclusive information out of her own mouth, and she tells Dolores, well, Dolores, you were telling me to pacify what I was saying about Margaret because you didn't want her to look like a bad person this season. You didn't want me painting her out to be this huge villain. And honestly, I can believe it, because knowing with Dolores how she's in the middle and she always sways back and forth, I can see her being like, okay, Jennifer, don't say too much because I'm still friends with Margaret. But I feel like if it was the other way around, she wouldn't have that same grace, because we saw how Dolores was at the beginning of the season with Jennifer and her situation with crying, how rough she was with it. And then that's the next conversation that gets brought up, because Jennifer's like, well, me and her also had a phone conversation off of camera behind the scenes. And she also told me, you know, don't cry too much or whatever, because you're a strong person and your relationship is good. Just try to stay strong. And I'm like, huh. So there are a lot of things happening behind the scenes. Next thing you know, Dolores and Jennifer, they start going at it. They're screaming at each other. And I'm like, can y'all shut the fuck up? Like, it's only been like 10 minutes and they were screaming at each other. And again, I feel like they were about to come to blows because they were so close to each other. And at some point, Dolores was like, are you going to let me finish talking? Are you going to let me finish talking? You need to shut the fuck up. And I'm like, gasp. I'm like, Jennifer, are you going to do something? Are you going to throw a Chanel earring at her? What's happening? And Jennifer, she did not back down. Again, that whole boo-hoo Jennifer that we saw this entire season, she was not there. She was not present at this reunion because Jennifer was not backing down from Dolores. And then Andy, he tried to intervene and he was like, yeah, Dolores, I mean, we did get a lot of backlash from you, how hard you were with with Jennifer this season about telling her, stop crying. Why the fuck are you crying? Dolores tried to make a point saying that she also related to what Jennifer went through because she went through the same thing with Frank. So she was just telling her, you know, be strong, stop crying. And then Andy moves the conversation over to Teresa, and he asked her, so Teresa, do you think that Dolores was being a bad friend to Jennifer? And Teresa was just like,
my love bubble, I need to protect my love bubble, my love bubble.
My love bubble. What was the question? No, I just feel like Dolores was. I feel like Dolores was. She was there for Jennifer. I like cookies. Teresa was so caught off guard. She was like, huh? I'm like, Teresa, just continue sitting there like a disco ball. So then the conversation went back to Dolores and Jennifer. They kept going back and forth. Dolores was trying to make a point. Margaret was trying to make a point. Everybody was yelling at this point. I'm like, oh my God, I cannot hear anything. For a second, I'm like, why is the volume not going down on my screen? And then I believe Dolores was like, is your fucking marriage perfect or not? And then Jennifer's like, yeah, it is fucking perfect. And then Dolores was like, well, then fucking act like it. And I'm like, wow, like if I was Jennifer, I would have been like, mush. Like the way they were so close to each other's faces, it was just so much tension between them. And again, I did not see this coming. Even Dolores was like, you know what? I'm done with this friendship. I'm not going to continue this friendship with her. She is disgusting. And I'm like, wow, we are using those words now because apparently Jennifer, she has been on a bunch of podcasts talking shit about Dolores and saying how much of a bad friend she was. And Jennifer's like, you know what? I'm disgusting. Fine. I'm done with your friendship completely. Like, I'm done with these backhanded compliments. We're done. And I'm just like, are y'all really done though? Because I can already see it now for next season. You need to have a sit down with Jennifer, Dolores. Next thing you know, both of them are eating and having lunch and are friends again. But okay, for now, Dolores said that she is not going to be friends with Jennifer moving forward. They move on to what Jackie said about Bill earlier in the season when she said, oh, I don't think that Bill should be sticking his dick in just anybody. And Dolores, she ran with that and she told Jennifer, oh, well, look what Jackie is saying behind your back. She's such a terrible friend to you. But Jennifer, she finally opened up her eyes after you're taking the bait when Dolores told her in the first place. And she said, oh, well, you know what? Watching the episode back, I see that it was taken out of context and Jackie didn't really mean it like that. And Dolores, she tried to explain her case. And she was like, well, I just felt like it was kind of terrible to say that because I've been in Jennifer's shoes. Yes, Dolores, you have been in her shoes. You have been in her clothes. You have been in her Chanel earrings. We get it. You're still wrong. You're still a flip-flop. And then Jackie, she's like, well, I mean, I could understand that and everything, but I just don't understand how some people on this cast, and she was referring to Teresa, she was like, I don't get how some people are just so offended by the word dick, but yet last season and the season before that, she could talk about her crotch and how it tastes like pineapple. I'm like, wait a minute. Pineapple. I forgot Teresa said that. And Teresa, that's when she activated. She was like, okay, Teresa mode on, love bubble off. And Teresa jumped in and she was like, I don't have a problem with what I said. I don't think you're classy because you're using the word dick. I just feel like that's very trashy. And then they went on to this conversation about being classy. And I'm like, first of all, none of you are classy. Let's get that straight. Like, I can't believe this. Like, we were really having an argument about who's being classy on this show. Like, did we not see Teresa just throw a bunch of plates at somebody else across the table? That's classy. Jackie, you were just about to get into it with Dolores at a public bar or a public place. That's not classy. So I'm not sure who is pointing. It's like that Spider-Man meme of the Spider-Man pointing his finger at the other Spider-Man. Both of you are not classy. What are y'all not understanding here? Andy then moves it back to Teresa and he's like, Teresa, Tiffany Fuck Men Get Money from Ohio wants to know, is it hypocritical that you went around spreading the rumors about Evan to Jackie last season and now you're over here pointing fingers at Margaret saying that she's wrong for bringing up Bill's affair from 10 years ago and throwing it in Jennifer's face? Don't you think it's hypocritical? And of course, Teresa just could never take accountability of anything. She was just like, no, I apologize for it already. I mean, I'm done with it. But what she didn't apologize for was that phone call that she got exposed from when Jennifer exposed her and Teresa for doing. Jackie's like, yeah, I mean, yeah, we were friends. And she did kind of apologize. But then she went back and she went to go make a phone call looking for some more information on Evan. And then this is where Teresa had me. Teresa was like, oh, really? Really, Jackie? Really? Prove it, bitch. And I'm like, wait a minute. In the infamous words of Nene Leakes, you better watch those B words before you end up in the ocean. Like, as soon as she would have said that, Jackie, all gloves were off because I would have called Louie X, Y, and Z in front of Teresa's face, knowing that that's probably going to get underneath her skin. Like, who are you calling a bitch? And then Jackie's like, don't call me a bitch. Don't call me a bitch. Don't call me a bitch. And then Jennifer, she went on to say that Teresa did not send her to go look for information on Evan with this infamous phone call. She said that when her and Teresa watched the episode back about the analogy between Jackie and Teresa, she said that Teresa didn't really understand the analogy. She said that it wasn't really clear. And I'm like, okay, well, whose fault is that Teresa is dumb and she can't put two and two together at what an analogy is or what Jackie was trying to say? Because I understood what Jackie was trying to get. Now, if Teresa doesn't get it, that's her own problem. So what? Just because you don't get it, you have to stoop to another level, a low level at that, and try to dig up information that's probably not true on Evan? I mean, I just don't understand Teresa's mindset with that. So Jennifer went on to say that that was the reason behind it. And then Jackie was like, well, if you would have found something, what would you have done with that information? Jennifer, she was like, well, I wouldn't have said it on camera. I would have told Teresa, but what would have Teresa done? She would have spread it to the entire group on camera. I'm pretty sure, I'm like 100% sure that she probably would have done that just to, in order to spite Jackie. And Margaret, I believe, was just like, why would you do that knowing that you're also going through the same situation, Jennifer? And Jennifer's like, well, you also dig up information too. Everybody digs up information as well. And then Jackie calls Jennifer Teresa's follower. And I'm like, well, I mean, you're also Margaret's follower as well. They get into another screaming match where I can't hear anything. I'm like, can somebody call security? And then I believe Jennifer calls Jackie, oh, you're so insecure. You cry about everything. And then Jackie's like, I'm a very strong woman. I'm the strongest woman that you would ever met. And then Jennifer is just like, well, you cry at everything, even at these rumors or whatever. And I'm like, now, Jennifer, let's not get too comfortable because we saw you sobbing the entire, 5 episodes that they gave us for New Jersey. And Teresa, she's also a hypocrite because Jackie was just like, well, you cried too. And then Teresa's like, no, I didn't. I never cried. What are you talking about? And I'm like, Teresa, you were whining and complaining like a little baby the entire season if anybody even breathed the wrong way around Louie. So yeah, I mean, you may have not cried, but you were also throwing tantrums. So you, Jackie, and Jennifer, all three of you, I'm not going to say all three of you are weak women or weak people, but you do have your weak moments. So to call each other weak is just hypocritical of all three of you. Andy then brings up Teresa's love bubble and he asks her, so Teresa, Louie, is he the one for you? Why is he the one? Tell me why you love him so much. Teresa starts listing out a bunch of qualities and Louie, she's like, he's so nice, he's so sweet, he treats me nicely, he doesn't curse at me, he doesn't yell, we never get into an argument. And I'm looking at this like, so the bare minimum basically. But then again, she never got that even with her ex-husband. So I can see why the bare minimum will feel like so much to Teresa because she never had that in her previous relationship. She also goes on to say that he didn't ask for any of this to be in the spotlight like this and to be questioned by Margaret and having all these allegations out there. And I'm like, but Teresa, you know that you're on a show, right? Like you do know that you're famous. You're not like on this show just to, okay, I'm here to film me, but I need to hide my life and I need to hide my relationship. This is called The Real Housewife. And what are you? The Real Housewife of New Jersey. So, I mean, I'm not sure what Teresa's logic was with that. If that was the case, if you really love Louie that much, then take yourself off the show. If you don't want him in the spotlight, he agreed to be on the show and in front of the camera. So I'm pretty sure he's okay with that. So I'm not, again, I don't understand her logic with that. Margaret's also like, I never really said anything bad about Louie. I mean, we just care about you. And then Teresa's like, you don't care about me. Stop it. And Margaret, yeah, you don't care about her. You just want to be nosy and messy. Andy also goes on to ask about the prenup. And I'm like, huh. Here we go. Teresa's like, I mean, that's really none of anybody's business here. I mean, that's just between me and Louie. And I'm like, no, Teresa, again, you're forgetting you're on a reality TV show. Your life is our business. And the whole entire cast. And Andy, it's not like you could hide things from this. Again, she's forgetting that she's a public figure and she forgets that she's famous and she cannot hide stuff like that. And the fact that she refuses to get a prenup with Louie, that is scary. And her excuse is, well, he has more money than me. Andy was basically throwing himself at Teresa like, I'll give you a raise. I'll give you a whole new intro. I'll fire Melissa for you if you get a prenup. He was offering everything to Teresa to change her mind. But and this also goes to show that he really does have a huge favoritism to Teresa, probably because she's been there since the very beginning and she hasn't gone anywhere besides jail. So maybe that's why he has such a alliance to her. But Teresa's like, no, that's just between me and Louie. And I'm like, you know what, Andy, at this point, you or anybody on the cast can't help Teresa. If she falls in a pit later on in this relationship or marriage with Louie, that's going to be her own fault and her own doing. And we're all going to be like, well, we told you so, and that's that. Teresa and Louie's engagement party gets brought up and Andy asks Dolores, so Dolores, are you upset that you were not there, or that you were not invited by Teresa, seeing how you and Teresa are so close and such buddies? Dolores, I don't care how she wants to twist her answer and how she wants to play Miss Universe and give a pageant answer of, oh no, Andy, everything was fine. I'm happy with Teresa. I know that deep down inside, Dolores was upset and she probably felt some type of way and she was confused as to why one of her close friends did not invite her to one of the biggest moments in her life, or at least a step to her, one of the biggest moments of her life, her wedding. So Dolores is like, no, everything is fine. I'm cool. Like, as long as she's happy, I'm fine. And I'm like, sure. And Teresa goes on to say that her excuse for not inviting her is, well, I mean, I just wanted to invite couples and she was single and Jennifer, Jennifer had Bill, Melissa has Joe. Dolores, she doesn't really have anybody. I mean, she has Frank, but that just was not cutting it. I mean, first of all, that's kind of fucked up if you actually think about it. Because if you're supposed to be that close friends as they say they are, and you don't invite her just because she's not in a relationship, first of all, that's very insulting. Like, what, you need a man or a significant other to be invited to certain events? That is pretty messed up. If anything, she could have just brought like a +1. She could have brought a family member, a friend, something. It was never that serious. But again, that's only if you're close friends, because if one of my friends did that to me, I would feel some type of way. Like, what do you mean I can't come just because I don't have a significant other? Like, so that means I'm not allowed to come to anything? Like, where are the rules her, or where are the standards? I think it was messed up. Now, allegedly, I heard online that the real reason why Dolores was not invited was because she is still friends with Caroline, and she still talks to people that Teresa does not talk to, and she's not happy about that. So Teresa, out of spite, she didn't invite Dolores to her own engagement party. Now, I'm not sure if that's true. It's all alleged. I'm not sure, but I can see that being an issue. But Andy then asked Jennifer Lopez, so were you upset that you weren't one of Teresa's bridesmaids? Now, Melissa was confused at first because she was like, well, no, I wasn't. I mean, I was okay with it because I'm assuming that it was going to be her daughters. But then when she found out that it was actually going to be Louie's sisters, he was like, wait a minute, Louie's sisters, you just met them. Like, what about me? Like, we have this whole history. Melissa went on to go list the things that she did for Teresa. I think it was kind of like a low blow of her mentioning her parents and how she held her mom's hands when she was in the hospital while Teresa was in jail. I thought, I don't know about that, Melissa. You could have used every other excuse, but that one was just kind of pushing it. I'm surprised that Teresa kept her cool for that because I would feel that would be like a trigger. But Melissa was like, we were so close. I'm assuming that just because I did all these nice things for her, that she would at least put me in her wedding or give me a position of a bridesmaid. Now, Melissa, I agree with you to a certain extent, but at the same time, just because you did a bunch of nice things for me doesn't mean I have to reward you for something. I mean, what? So just because you did nice things to me, were those not genuine? Like, were you just doing it because you wanted some type of prize, some type of like reward or something? No. So if you're going to do something from the heart, do it because you want to, not because you expect something out of Teresa. And Teresa, she goes on to say, I mean, Melissa, we're really not that close. I mean, we're close, but we're really not close. And then Melissa finally said it. And I was so glad that she did because Melissa was like, you know what? It's fine if you don't have me as your bridesmaid. It's fine. I'm completely okay with that. But let's stop faking like we are friends or that we are cool or that we are like sisters like that, because we are not. And I'm like, finally, Melissa, like she was making a lot of sense this reunion. I agree with everything she was saying for the most part, because I mean, let's put the cameras aside. They're not really close to each other. They do not like each other. They only like each other for the show. This is why one of them needs to leave, because we're always going to have this fake like relationship between Melissa and Teresa. Like Teresa does not like you. Melissa, I don't think you like her. The only reason why you two even put up with each other is because Joe, Melissa's husband and Teresa's brother, is in the middle. And even that is not enough to kind of keep y'all together, because Teresa, she borderline doesn't even like Joe at sometimes. So, I mean, then the next conversation gets brought up. Melissa brings it up and she's like, well, you know, when we were at your engagement party, you put me and your brother at a separate table and you had all of Louie's family table at your table with him. And that's pretty sad itself. And Teresa, more foolishness, because Teresa was just like, well, I didn't make up the engagement table seating. I didn't make that up. When I got there, it was just already placed. And I'm like, that is not, I mean, I don't know much about weddings or engagement parties, but I'm pretty sure that that is not how it works, especially if you're paying for all of this, if you're paying for catering, the place, the seats, everything. I'm pretty sure that a random person that just doesn't come in and like, oh, you know what? Let me decide to be messy and let me just put everybody over here that Teresa likes and let me put Melissa and Joe over there by the dishwashers. Like, I'm pretty sure that that's not how it works. So Teresa pretending to be clueless, I don't buy it at all. And then Margaret, she tried to interject and she's like, Teresa, really? Like, you didn't have a say in anything, in any of the seating or whatever? And Teresa, she got pissed off. She got triggered. She was like, first of all, Margaret, you shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up because you don't know anything, you stupid bitch. And I'm like, well, damn, Teresa. Like, did she hit a nerve? Because I'm pretty sure, and Margaret is just like, yeah, you're lying, and Teresa doesn't want to be exposed. So that's why she probably got upset. And I'm like, wow. Like, she's throwing around those B words a lot. Now, if Margaret was to say something back, I will be all here for it. Teresa also lost me when she questioned Melissa on if she will be her bridesmaid now, if she was getting married now with Joe. And Melissa's like, yeah, of course you will be my bridesmaid now. You were my bridesmaid at the beginning when we first got married, so why wouldn't you be now? And then Teresa's like, oh yeah, but of course you couldn't wait until I gave birth. And I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, please elaborate on that. Now, Teresa went on to explain that how Melissa should have had her engagement party and her whole wedding after she gave birth because she was 9 months pregnant and she should have catered around her. And I'm like, Teresa, where is this love bubble? Like, where is it taking you? Because at this point, that love bubble is a delusional bubble. That is scary that Teresa just lives in her own world and everybody just has to bow down to her. Even Andy, you know it was serious when Andy was pulling a Kyle Richards because he was just like, like, even he couldn't believe the bullshit that was coming out of Teresa's mouth. Like, what? You want somebody to cater their wedding around you just because you're pregnant? Like, Teresa, it just does not work like that. So, you know, 5 points for Melissa, 0 for Teresa. Andy then says one of the worst things that could come out of his mouth. He's like, I want to bring out Joe Gorga next. And I'm like, don't do this to me right now. Stop. Are you serious? Andy, stop. You couldn't wait till part 3? Like, come on, why? Like, when he said that, I'm like, well, that's quick. It's only the first part of the reunion. Like, we're bringing him out, but all right, here he comes. So out comes Joe. He sits behind Melissa. He asks Joe, so Joe, the conversation about your wife, Melissa, being a bridesmaid, that has been a conversation. Has it been a thing at the house with you and her? Like, what do you think about it? Joe's just like, of course. Yeah, I felt some type of way about it, but I mean, what can I really do? I mean, that's my wife, and I'm just disappointed. She could do whatever she wants, but I'm just, on my part, I'm pretty disappointed. And I'm like, okay, Joe, we get it, we understand. And then Teresa goes on to say that she wishes that she could have a better relationship with Melissa. Melissa feels the same way. And honestly, I just feel like it's a bunch of BS. Like, Teresa is such a hypocrite. She's a hypocrite. She's a delusional, and she's just in her head. She's so stubborn because she feels that she wants Melissa and Joe to have loyalty to her non-stop. But it could never be the other way around. I mean, I could understand because they've both been trashy people to her. So I get it, but Teresa always expects the world from everybody, but she could never even give an ounce to anybody else. So that's the part that always kills me with Teresa. Like, Teresa, I love you. Like, I am such a big fan of Teresa, but Teresa, you are so delusional. Like, you cannot expect Melissa to just always be bowing down to you every single day. Like, I mean, Melissa, again, yeah, she has been shitty to you because she does play a flip-flops like here and there with you with Marge. She always exposes you to Margaret. She always reads text messages that you send her privately out loud to Margaret like she did at the beginning of the season. But again, you always expect way too much, but you don't even give an ounce of who you are to other people. But yeah, everybody else, again, has to bow down to you. This is why I continue saying Teresa needs to get the fuck off the show. Like, it will always be the Teresa show every single season, nonstop, because again, everything always has to be catered around her. Joe goes on to say that he might not be in the wedding as like a part of it at all. He's not sure if his wife cannot be a part of it. Teresa's like, it's fine. Like, I understand that. Louie's not gonna get offended. Louie has only been nice to you, but you've always been just nasty to her. And I mean, I understand what Teresa was saying with that part, because Louie, from what we know, even though he has a bunch of red flags, he has always been respectful and nice to all the husbands on the show. Now, Joe, on the other hand, he acts snobbish and rude when it comes to dealing with Louie. Now, I could understand why to a certain extent, because Teresa, being his sister, she's dating this man who has all these allegations out online. Of course, I'm not just gonna walk into this relationship with Louie and be like, well, you know what? My sister is blinded by love and she treats you like a king. She thinks that you're like the best thing on earth. I'm not gonna be the same way. I might be a little shady. I might give you a little attitude because, again, I'm not gonna be trapped in her love bubble as well. I have my own opinions, and these allegations, they're swaying my opinion as well. So I can see why Joe would act snobbish to a certain extent. But then again, Joe, that's his whole personality. You know, he's like, oh, I'm just this big masculine man. So that is just a whole other case in general. And he's like, okay, so Teresa, this whole situation with Melissa, like, does it go any deeper than that? Teresa also brings up Caroline, Jacqueline. She's like, you decide to be friends with everybody who I'm not really friends with. And then Andy drops a bomb on Teresa and everybody at the reunion and me, because I was shocked for a second, because Andy's like, you know what? Let's bring out Jacqueline. Imagine if that would have happened. Teresa would have flipped every single couch. Teresa probably would have walked out. And then next thing you know, Andy's like, wait. We got another question. Okay. So, Philip, I'm a scammer. No, I'm not. LOLJK from Texas wants to know. So, have you really been there for Melissa? Please give some examples. And then, boom. What's going on? Why did the lights go out? Let me get my phone. Jennifer, quickly, give me some examples of when I've been there for Melissa. Quickly, before the lights go on. No, I just texted Louie right now quickly to like shut the power off so I could think of some ideas. Quickly, hurry up before the cameras come on. I think Andy could hear me whispering. Hurry up, I think the lights are about to come on. Do you not have any examples? Oh, great, now I'm screwed. They're gonna edit this in Melissa's favor. Oh, great. Hold on, let me text Louie if he could do something else. Oh, I love him so much, he's so sweet. Let's send him a selfie. Oh wait, it's dark. After struggling for 10 hours of finding ways that Teresa has been there for Melissa, Teresa's just like, okay, so play the footage. I have been there for Melissa. Play the footage. Play the footage. Go ahead, Andy, play the footage. Producer, play the footage. I'm sure that there's a lot of footage. Season 2, nothing. Season 3, 5, 7, 8. Last season? Play the footage. I'm sure that there's something, but I'm like, no, Teresa, I'm sorry. There is no footage. They're not going to play nothing for you. But after 5 seconds or 5 minutes, Teresa finally reaches at the bottom of the barrel to pull up some scraps. And she's like, wait a minute, Melissa, I was there for you and I defended you with the whole situation with Jennifer. And then Joe, he buds in and he's like, honestly, Teresa, our father will be disappointed in you in this whole situation after you took up for Jennifer, after she called me a crook. And then I believe Jennifer was just like, well, I mean, I didn't really call you a crook. I heard it from Margaret. Everything leads back to Margaret. Next thing you know, Margaret's just like, what, me? Everything leads up to me. No, I'm sorry, Jennifer, but you're high all the time. So I'm not sure what you're coming up with. And you barely talk sober. You're always high all the time. Next thing you know, Teresa jumps in and she's like, but everybody functions better with weed when they're high. Andy then asked Teresa, do you think that it was too much on how your daughters were talking to Joe, specifically Gia? Do you think it was a little bit too much on how she was expressing herself to Joe? And then Joe, all of a sudden, he swears that we forget that he also has a history on the show of being a shitty brother or a shitty person in general to Teresa. And he's like, I've always been a good person. I've always been that, I've always been a great man. I've always been loving and caring and I just show nothing but love. And I'm like, no, Joe, let's not pretend like you're also an angel and that you have a halo over your head. No, because the same way Teresa is not perfect, you're not perfect, and neither is Melissa. And then they show it too in the flashback of Teresa, all these moments of her being a shitty person to Melissa. So again, it's kind of like a tit for tat. That's why it's so hard to even be on anyone's side because they're all just shitty people to each other. And again, it just goes to show that just because you're family or just because you're blood doesn't mean that you have to love each other, I'm assuming, sadly, because look at Teresa and Joe. It's just, that's a relationship that just seems that they're better like apart and maybe like just visit each other every now and then. That's why I feel like they need to get on the fucking show, because I feel like if they continue on, their relationship is just going to get more and more vile and more toxic, and the hate is just going to continue growing. Like, I would hate to see Teresa and Melissa finally come to blows. I would hate to see that because it would just go to show like, wow, the hate has gotten so strong that it has reached a point where you have to get physical with each other. But going back to Gia, Teresa's like, I'm not expecting anything of Gia. I'm not explaining anything to her on how she should explain herself or feel or anything. But at the same time, just like I mentioned in one of my reviews at the beginning, Gia is also delusional herself, and I'm assuming she gets it from her mom because she's willing to look past everything her own father has said about her own mom, Teresa. It's on camera, but she's willing to look at Joe being like this big bad guy. I mean, I get it, I understand that, but at the same time, Gia, also have that type of energy to your own father as well. Hold his hand to the fire as well, because he has called your mom and he has treated your mom very awfully on this show. Like, he's called her many awful names, and she's just willing to look past it, but yet she's willing to point fingers at Joe. Melissa then says that Margaret has never said anything bad about Louie. All Margaret has been doing is just questioning these allegations online about him. That's it. But that's the problem right there, Melissa, is the intentions behind what Margaret is doing. She's doing it to press Teresa's buttons and to cause drama and to be messy. She's not doing it because she's really concerned. I mean, knowing her pattern, I don't really think she cares about Teresa's feelings like that. If anything, I think she probably wants Teresa and Louie to go down in flames, so that way she could like gloat about it, like, aha, I told you so. It would be different if it was maybe like Gia or Jennifer or even Dolores questioning Teresa, like, hey, Teresa or mom, what about these allegations? Maybe we should look into them. That would be different because they genuinely care about Teresa. Now, Margaret, again, different story, so that's the problem. And then Andy, he asked Teresa, so Teresa, if Margaret called Louie a little bitch boy, would you be okay with that? And Teresa was just like, yeah, I'll be fine with that. Like, she could call him a little bitch boy. I have no issue with that. And I'm like, Teresa, you know you are lying. Stop it. Like, you are lying. You are Simba. You are Rafiki. You are Scar. Stop it. You are lying because you can't even handle her questioning him, let alone calling him out of his name. I don't think you'll be okay with that. So please stop pretending that you're so unbothered and that your love bubble is so strong, because obviously anybody could pop it with a quickness. And then she's like, well, I mean, honestly, my Louie, he wouldn't be involved in women's drama anyway. I would tell him like to cool it, like relax. Like, I don't want you involved in women's issue because this is Housewives, not, house whatever you are. or house red flag. You know, it's not that. So then Andy's just like, well, Joe Giudice, he was at the reunion a couple of times. And I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? And then Teresa's like, yeah, but he was always with the men. He was never involved in the women's issues like other people here. And then Joe, he proceeds to leave. And then in comes Josephine. And Josephine jumps in and he's like, oh, well, this is a show, so I'm sorry. I mean, I wanna hold a meatball next season as well. And I'm trying to replace Melissa. Sorry, but yeah, it's true. I'm trying to replace you. But yeah, I'm trying to replace her. So, I mean, it's a show. What do you expect me to do? You're always putting me down with your friend right there. And I'm like, well, here we go, because he directed it to Jennifer. And I'm like, why are we doing this? And Jennifer is just like, wait, what? Why you have to mention me? I didn't do anything. I was trying to, plead my case and apologize to you. I always said I was sorry for calling you a little bitch girl. So I'm not sure what you directed your anger at me. And then Joe, he just could not take it. He was just like this. And I did not like that action that he did. And I was not mad at Jennifer's reaction. If anything, Jennifer's reaction was just a little bit too tamed, because I would have took off my red bottom shoe and threw it right at him. Like, who the fuck are you, motioning that you're going to slap like that? Jennifer throws it right back at Joe. And she's like, oh, I can do it right back at you, little bitch girl. And I'm like, well, you see what happens, Josephine? You had it coming, because you should have just sat there behind Melissa quietly in your nice little tuxedo and, just stood there looking cute. But no, you had to involve yourself in issues that don't belong to you. And then you drag Jennifer into it when she was trying to be cordial. And Jennifer was just like, I was trying to be respectful to you. I was trying to apologize and be nice and, ask for forgiveness for what I called you. But here we are. And then Joe was just like, oh, shut up. And I just did not like that. I mean, I get it that, yeah, he wants to defend himself because, yeah, you're calling him out of his name. But at the same time, I just don't like the dynamic of that. I don't like how it looks. And knowing that Joe has a hot temper, I don't know, it rubs me the wrong way. And then Melissa's like, Teresa, you're not going to say anything? I mean, this has nothing to do with you, Jennifer. Like, nothing to do with you. But Teresa, she just called your brother out your name and she's always coming at him and you're not even going to say anything. And Teresa's like, cookies. All she cares about is getting back to Louie backstage. And then Melissa was just like, you know what's so funny, Jennifer, that you're calling him a bitch boy, but that's exactly what you were doing to your own husband for not sticking up to you that same night. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This is a different dynamic from a different perspective that I didn't actually see coming. I'm like, wait a minute. Melissa's making sense? Again? Like, that was very interesting. I'm like, wait a minute, Melissa, what were you drinking before this reunion that all of a sudden, you're using your brain? But I agree. I mean, technically, yeah, Jennifer was kind of making her husband into a little bitch girl, if you want to put it that way. But then Jennifer's just like, oh, there's a spectrum. And Andy was all of us, because Andy was just like, oh, there's a spectrum. I'm like, Jennifer, please stop. That is such a sorry-ass excuse. And then Josephine said probably the most cringiest thing that I probably heard this entire season. Like, this entire season came from Joe. Josephine was just like, well, you know what, honey? And I'm glad that Jennifer was just like, don't call me honey. Again, that shoe would have been flying in his direction, because I'm like, who are you talking to me like that? He talks to women as if he could overpower them. I mean, look how he talks to Melissa every other episode. But then Josephine is just like, you know what? You know what makes a real man? A man who wakes up at 5 o'clock in the morning, has a milkshake full of eggs, gets some bacon, and goes to work in construction. And I take care of my woman. Look, this is my woman right here. I have her in the palm of my hands. This is what makes a woman, and this is what makes a man. I'm a man. And I'm like, ew, like, my skin was crawling. I'm probably going to take a shower after this video, because my skin is still crawling after that, because I'm like, Josephine, you are just a toxic frat fuck boy. Like, that's exactly what he is. Everything about him is cringe. And honestly, that's probably why everybody looks at Melissa like a lame as well, because she is married to him. So of course they see Joe and then they see Melissa and they're like, one lame, you're just lame by association. If she was to separate herself from him, she'll probably be cooler. But Melissa, I am so sorry that you have to deal with that. I don't know how she sticks by his side. I just could not do it. He's the definition of toxic masculinity. Like, that is exactly what he is. Like, it was just so disgusting to watch. And then Jennifer's just like, oh, well, I mean, I'm sorry, but that behavior that you were behaving that same night that me and your wife got into, you were acting like a little bitch girl. So I'm sorry, but you were. And then Teresa's just like, I mean, okay, Jennifer, stop calling him a bitch boy. Okay, there, you're happy? I mean, I'm sorry, but yeah, you do act like a housewife sometime. And I'm like, damn. Like, that was the dagger right there, like, to his coffin, because after that, I mean, you can't go back from that. Joe, if I was you, I would just leave and never come back. And then Joe, obviously, he was in his feelings that Teresa just called him a housewife and a little bitch girl, and she agreed with Jennifer. And then he's just like, you know what? Don't piss me off. Don't piss me off. You know he probably thought about this entire scene in his New York hotel the entire night, and he probably cried. Like, he was like, don't get me upset. You know what? I can't take this no more. I can't take it no more. You know what, Bravo? It's been real. It's after 12 years, I'm leaving. Nobody's gonna stop me. Nobody cares if I'm on the show. Okay, I'll walk slower, and just in case if you want to send security to calm me down and keep me on the show. Okay, hold on, Andy. I'm leaving. I'm leaving the show. No, it's been real after 12 years. It's been fine, Bravo. I don't need this show. How come nobody's stopping me? Nobody, Melissa, not even you, Jackie, Margaret. Nobody's gonna grab me to like put me down back on the seat. You know what? Forget this. So then he walks away, and I'm just like, yeah. Yay, finally. I mean, it's gonna be so embarrassing if he actually does come back next season, because he said it so assuringly, like, yeah, I'm done, I'm completely done after 12 seasons, blah blah blah. I'm like, finally, like, please let this be the end, like, go away, Josephine. But we all know he is craving that front and center meatball for next season, and he'll be back. So unfortunately, so he walks away. He is pissed. He was like, I can't believe this. I think he called Teresa a fucking idiot or something around the lines, something like that. He said something about Teresa, and that's the way it ends. I mean, again, throwing a big tantrum over nothing just because you wanted to involve yourself in issues. How do you get upset at something that you're trying to involve yourself in, and then when somebody responds back to you, you throw a tantrum? Like, obviously, there must be something in the Judice, not the Judice, in Teresa and Joe's bloodline or something that they just can't take accountability. And if somebody throws something back at them, they start crying about it because look, like brother, like sister. And that was the first part of the reunion. What did everybody think about this part? I mean, to me, it was a lot. They came in swinging from the first 10 minutes. I mean, it was nonstop screaming and yelling. Teresa not taking accountability of anything, being delusional as usual. Josephine, and walking away out of our lives, hopefully forever, but probably not. But again, what did y'all think about this part? I mean, for the first part, again, of any Housewives reunion, they gave a lot. So I'm curious to see what happens on part 2 and part 3. And also, side note, I saw online that Jackie supposedly got demoted to just a friend of the show. And I'm like, why? I mean, out of everybody, Jackie, she actually gave a good storyline this season. But then again, maybe they demoted her because of of health reasons. Like, if she continued in drama, they probably didn't want her to be a liability and like relapse back into her eating disorder or something like that. Maybe. But I mean, I'm assuming everybody comes back, and supposedly they're testing a friend of Teresa's and a friend of Melissa's. And I'm like, why? Another friend of Melissa, and supposedly Tracy, she's fired. But that's a given though. I mean, I hope, when is she gonna come in for for part 2 or part 3? She's probably somewhere backstage like, so, I mean, where's my segment? Is it time for me yet? Like, she doesn't even get a seat on the couch. She gets a little chair. But regardless, let me know what y'all thought about this part of the reunion down in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye, everybody. I will see you all at part 2 of the reunion. Bye. Mwah.